Hey everybody, this is JDGaming back today with a deck profile for the first time in 2020. Hope everyone has been doing well. If you kept up with the community tab, you may kind of know that I've had a lot of recent life changes over the last month or two, and one of which was I finally moved into this new apartment with my brother, and so everything is finally here. I'm settled in, and you may notice some slight changes to audio, lighting, things like that, so I do ask that you bear with me as I kind of readjust over the coming months here, but I am back with a new video, and I'm very excited because I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! In a lot of different formats in the past year. I've been playing Duel Links again, where I played a deck similar to this, as much as available in that card pool. I played Progression Series with a buddy on a regular basis, and for part of it at least, I played a deck that was kind of like this, and of course, playing in the TCG. I haven't gotten to Master Duel quite yet, but I've been playing in the real TCG with my brother as well, and of course, I've been playing this deck right here that we're going to profile today. And looking back, I honestly feel at this point, even more than Psychics, which we'll get to at some point probably because Telly's at 3, but even more than Psychics, I think this rank 4 toolbox deck has basically been a mainstay of the channel. I like calling it Mr. Xyz these days, but basically that MR Magical Reptiles Xyz toolbox is a very simple concept that's basically what Charmers were supposed to be, but this one's so much better. And as we get new Xyz monsters, Xyz support in general, which we've got plenty of over the last year plus, this deck keeps getting better even with the same old concept, and I just love how it evolves over time. It just embodies what Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been as a trading card game over the last 20-some years. So it's gonna be a fun time for me using this as kind of my return to the channel. I really love this deck as a comfort one, so hope you guys enjoy this. But yeah, this is going to be a let's build as always. I'm gonna be explaining my card choices and telling you why things are in here, what I'm thinking about as I put them in here. Of course, you're free to do whatever you want with it. This is just a starting point for you, and you go ahead and build it however you want, but this is how I like to do it. If you just want to see the final list, you can use either the chapter function that YouTube provides or the table of contents that I always have in the description box down below. It'll take you to the alphabetical profile at the very end of the video, as always, and then of course you can go and check out the other stuff if you have any questions on things. But without further ado, it feels awesome to say this. Let's build Water MR Xyz. The first step in building a deck is to establish a theme and to build a core that supports the theme's goals. And since we know we're going to be summoning rank 4 monsters, we just need to summon a lot of level 4 monsters, and hopefully enough of them are water for us to unlock the full potential of our extra deck. So this is going to be a pretty quick, relatively quick for JDGaming standards, look at the deck core, but I like starting off with 3 copies of Chocolate Magician Girl, who's basically level 4 water monster, has an ability to discard spellcaster monsters from your hand, load them in the grave, get a free draw, and you basically set up all your plays. Read her for a bonus effect that kind of makes her an interesting defender, but the main reason you're playing her is because she allows you to unlock the effects of cards like your Performage Damage Juggler, who same stats of course in terms of level, and basically this thing is potentially a hand trap, but usually going to be sent to the graveyard in some way. You banish her from the graveyard in order to search a Performage monster, and that helps you continue extending plays. For example, if you have at least 2 monsters total, or if your opponent is contributing to a total of 2 monsters, your search can get you Hat Tricker, and that lets you go for yet another spellcaster monster, and we'll get to why the spellcasters are so important in just a little bit here, but there's another Hat Trick literal effect where you triple your stats. Don't really care about that. I've never really seen that come up, and I don't really care if it would even come up, but you're able to just bring out a free monster if there's at least 2, so that's very good off of your damage juggler. And then for the last of the Performages we play here, Performage Trick Clown, who's just going to bring back either itself most of the time or any of the other Performages from graveyard if it's sent to the graveyard. Hard once per turn, but it works from anywhere that it's sent to the graveyard, even from Xyz material. That monster's stats are sapped to 0, but that doesn't even matter. It's just another free discard off of Chocolate and a good monster to use for Xyz material in general. And the basic idea is those are the magic part of Magical Reptiles, and by having that, you're able to go and summon your reptile, 𝗗𝗲𝗰𝗍. This is of course one of the Charmer familiar dudes. Basically what he does is if you have a spellcaster, you drop it to the field. It's a reptile, which means you can fetch it for free with king of the Feral Imps if you can make any level 4 combination to make your rank 4 here. And it's cool that 𝗗𝗲𝗃𝗍's a water monster because that contributes to half of your main plays as well. So basically, if you go and use something like a 𝗏𝗏𝗃 as part of your Xyz summon, for example, that's going to come right back next to your King of the 𝗏𝗏𝗃. You drop your 𝗗𝗃𝗃, that's a second Xyz monster, and then you can go ahead and make other plays with that, which is a lot of fun. If you can make that other monster a water monster, though, it's going to be even stronger, and so we'll talk about that. But one other thing to keep in mind with 𝗗𝗃𝗃, it comes up a little more in Duel Links, admittedly, but you can't forget, if your opponent hits this with something dumb like Solemn Strike, or just like tries to pop it with removal, it is able to summon out a monster with the same stats as him that is not him. So you can go ahead and summon the next card directly from the deck. It sometimes comes up, so just make sure you're aware of that effect. But Nefarious Archfiend Eater of Nefariousness is basically in here because you can't play more than 3 𝗗𝗃𝗃s. The only stipulation on either of these guys is basically you can only control one at a time, but you can keep dropping him from your hand as long as you're able to control a spellcaster and use them up before you drop the next one. And basically, if this thing is in your graveyard, it has an effect that does come up sometimes. You could target one of your monsters during your opponent's end phase, which, you know, sometimes your opponent doesn't win in one turn. You pop that monster like a 𝗏𝗏𝗃, and then you bring this card right back, and the synergy here is, of course, the 𝗏𝗏𝗃 will come back if it wasn't already used that turn, and now Nefarious Archfiend is a free monster next to it, so you can make an Xyz summon without any other commitment. So that's why this card's in here. It's just a really good card overall that lets you combo with some things. It's not in there for the end phase effect, but it is a pretty useful effect. It is a thing you can summon off of the 𝗗𝗃𝗃, so basically at least play the one copy of this thing just because it's, you know, more 𝗗𝗃𝗃s effectively. But if not, you know, I like playing 3 of this because I just think having that allows you to expand your spellcasters into your extra deck. These next cards, you could play whatever numbers of them. These are the numbers I chose, but really they're just extenders. Silent Angler, level 4 water monster that says if you control a water, like 𝗗𝗃𝗃, you just drop it from your hand. It locks you out of special summons from your hand for the rest of the turn, but again, it's a rest of the turn effect, so you could still make all your plays, drop all the guys we just talked about, then drop this at the end. Okay, you got a free water monster, and now you can make your Xyz that require 2 water monsters, and so that's why I like playing that. The Tenyi Spirit 𝗗𝗲𝗃, I guess, is similar, but you play this first before you have any effect monsters on the field. And then there's this bonus effect where it serves as non-targeting removal if your opponent destroys one of your non-effect monsters, or you destroy it with a card effect, which, you know, your Instant Fusion, your Ready Fusion, those cards we play in here, those are going to trigger that as well. So it's kind of fun where it's like mini Panzer Dragon without playing that card. And then the last of the actual monster cards I play for the deck core is Xyz Sly Dolphin. Again, you could play 2 or 3 of any of these things. I just chose the 3, 2, and 2 ratio of the cards you saw. But effectively, if you Xyz summon, you're able to summon Sly Dolphin from your hand, which is good because now King of the 𝗏𝗏𝗃 is going to fetch you a water monster, and now you have a second water monster next to it. There's another effect that says you could just attach him to one of your Xyz monsters on a turn that wasn't just sent there, and sometimes that's useful for something like Zeus or making something like 𝗵𝗍𝗃 last longer. But realistically, you're using this because it's just a free water monster you can play very, very easily from your hand. So yeah, that's that. Next, we're playing effectively 4 copies of Ready Fusion because we're playing Ready Fusion and 1 Instant Fusion. If you never read Ready Fusion, it's basically just any level 6 or lower non-effect fusion monster you can just summon. Same thing, pay 1,000 life points, it destroys itself in the end phase, which is good because that triggers your 𝗗𝗲𝗃 if you want to do that. But now you basically have 4 ways to, without even normal summoning, bring out either a level 4 spellcaster or a level 4 water monster. Both of these cards are really, really good. I know they're kind of expensive for no reason because they are targets for this, but in this strategy, just the way the gameplay mechanics work, you really want to play these, especially because the fusion cards are just so easy to extend into your plays, and they're so flexible because you can go for either the spellcaster or the water. If you want to play more copies of these guys for some reason, I would say double down on Fish, but make sure you do have Camion Wizard first because you do want to have a spellcaster. But if you draw multiples of like Ready Fusion plus Instant Fusion, let's say, you want to go for the rare Fish because that's the harder requirement, is the second water monster. But of course, again, having a spellcaster starts everything, so you probably want both. But what's the whole idea of this JDGaming? Why are you trying to summon 2 monsters and they need to be water? Well, first of all, you know, if you go and do something like you summon this and then you drop, I don't know, like literally any dude, and you go and make an Xyz monster, that first guy's gonna be King of the 𝗏𝗏𝗃s. If this guy doesn't get stopped, it's gonna be amazing because now, oh, you get a spellcaster back, and you got a free search of your 𝗗𝗃𝗃, which you're able to drop. And if you combine that setup here with any of the water monsters we just talked about, like even this guy, let's say, these are 2 water monsters. So now you overlay them, summon your Bahamut Shark as you used to in the totally awesome version of this deck, detach one of these things in order to summon out a totally awesome, who's a very strong Omni Negate. But whereas this would have been the end of the play back in the day, we're not done here anymore. By using 2 level 4, or rank 4 rather, monsters that are not number monsters, we're able to summon our old pal, number F0 𝗗𝗲𝗃 Future, who is technically a boss monster in his own right, and he used to be played for his effect, but we're not using him for that anymore. Just read him so you know what he does in case you need him. We're playing him because he becomes a 3000 non-destroyable monster from battle or card effects, who has a negation for monster effects, and can even steal a monster just by detaching material. So now all of a sudden, you get a totally awesome for free while summoning this guy, who's also a negate, and both of these guys steal cards, which is just dumb. And it's very easy to do. Like, if you can summon King of the Feral Imps with all the extenders we have in this deck, you're probably getting this as long as you don't get hand trapped. And sometimes, if you have the correct extenders, you can even do this through hand traps. So that's why we're playing all the water monsters. First and foremost is being able to bring out both of these guys. And it's just amazing that the same concept we had before is now even better, because this guy upgrades our 𝗗𝗃𝗃 Future into an even more terrifying boss monster. Now that the main core is done, we're going to go ahead and add cards to flesh out the rest of the deck. And all these are tech options. You can play something else if you'd like, but of course I'll provide my reasons for why I'm playing these. Starting off with the whole reason why this deck profile is at the end of this month and not weeks sooner, we have 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet that I ordered on the holidays and finally decided to show up. But this card, I was playing alongside Chalice, and I was playing Chalice instead of this before. All of them are valid combinations of playing these cards, and definitely play the Chalice if you want a budget-friendly option. But if you can afford it or you're playing digitally, I really, really like Droplet. First of all, it's because last format, before the ban list, I was playing against a lot of 𝗲𝗲𝗃, and I couldn't target any of their monsters, and that was annoying. And of course, even without a Cymorg Link monster in the format, you're still going to find things that you wish you could get through without targeting. Droplet's just really good for that. Plus the synergy of just being able to send your Perform Mages to the graveyard and then have free effects loaded up. You can bring out a Spellcaster now without even committing your normal summon. That's just way too good to pass up on, so I really love playing 3 of this. And one other spicy thing you play in your extra deck is a single copy of Exciton Knight, which admittedly, if you're not playing Droplet, don't play Exciton Knight most likely, because it's not the most effective card. But once you've blanked your opponent's cards, dropped half your hand, and now you have fewer cards than your opponent, you can clean up the rest of your opponent's board just by summoning this rank 4, because he blows up everything as long as your opponent has more cards than you do. So very powerful for that. I really do like this to just efficiently get rid of your opponent's board setup, yeah, the fact that this synergizes with your other cards just makes it so much better than if it weren't able to synergize. And that's why we are trying to push to play for that. But again, you can play this deck totally without that. It just depends on what options you're playing to address your opponent's threats, is really the final thing there. Next, I do like playing kind of triple tactics talent in this deck, in this format, because basically you're going to use this as Pot of Greed in most scenarios unless you can steal a monster and win. And right now with Destroy Phoenix Enforcer, DPE being everywhere, this card's basically as live as it's ever going to be, because it's going to trigger on that or hand traps or Omni Negate monsters. There's so many things that make this thing live, and when you just draw 2, have free extenders, keep going, it helps make sure that you get your plays to stick. And so if you have this, if you can afford this, or you're playing digitally, play this thing. If not, just play some other extenders. But realistically, this card's just so much more impactful than any single card you can play in their spots, and they're very, very easy to fulfill right now. Like last format, or before DPE, I wouldn't have really liked this guy. It was kind of like, it's funny to take Dragoon, but kind of risky. Nowadays, it's just too good not to play, and so if you can, definitely consider playing it at the very least. Now, for a more budget-friendly option that I still do like playing, I like 2 Xyz import. I played 3, but it's kind of much when you play Droplet and Tactics Talent anyway. But the whole idea of this is a quick play spell that says if you have an Xyz monster that's stronger than any of your opponent's monsters, just at any time, steal your opponent's monster. It does target it, but he becomes your material, which will strengthen your plays, and that's just annoying, just hard to play around removal that's like on the level of Book of Moon, but you can also steal Link monsters. And you can even combo it with 𝗵𝗍𝗃, which is something I was playing even before the Exciton Knight. Basically, if you're going second and your opponent has a bunch of synchro omni negates, especially, things like Borreload Savage and Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, just drop this in defense position and all of them switch to defense, and their activated effects, including negation effects that are triggers, will just shut off. And then you can just pick them off using the Xyz import, because a lot of your opponent's monsters will be weaker than 21. Of course, you can go for a bigger monster as well if you do need to, but this just becomes really easy to just shut down your opponent's entire board off of one card, so the value in this is amazing. And you can, of course, use his attack position effect that's kind of like your Wrecking Ball to go into Zeus. It's not the best way of using him, but it does exist, so make sure you're at least familiar with what this card is capable of doing. But yeah, that's a very good option. If you can't afford the droplets, play your Chalice and play your Xyz imports along with 𝗵𝗂𝗮𝗄, and that'll take you pretty far. Next, we have some one-ofs to finish out the main deck. We have Called by the Grave, because stopping your opponent's hand trap is just crazy in this deck because it lets you go off. One copy of Desires now because it recently got hit. Basically, it's Pot of Greed in this deck, even with the next card we're going to talk about. So yeah, you're going to play this thing. It was at 3 in this deck, and since I was forced to cut that down to 1, I decided to play one copy of Double or Nothing. And the basic idea is, this is your brick that you search off of your Utopia Double, who you summon off of 2 level 4 monsters. Ignition effect lets you detach a material to search Double or Nothing, and overlay for Utopia, who now gets doubled to 5,000 attack, and you can fulfill the conditions for Double or Nothing with Utopia's own effects, so now he can attack, negate himself, become 10,000 attack, and kill your opponent through a monster. And if you somehow fail, you just turn that into Zeus as well, which is just hilarious for this deck. I don't need to talk about Zeus, I think, because you guys already know him. If not, read him. He's insanely powerful in this kind of strategy. But yeah, the problem with Desires at 3 was it was too good not to play, and so you couldn't play Double or Nothing unless you basically made a sacrifice, and it's kind of clunky. It's like, do you go for the OTK where you don't need draws, or do you just go and get free draws? But here, at 1 copy especially, if this fails, like you get hand trapped or something, okay, just play Desires as a free extender and keep making plays. Or, even if you just play the Desires because your hand's bad, chances are you're probably not going to hit Double or Nothing, and even if you do, it's not the end of the world, because that's just a 1 of tech in the main deck anyway. So overall, I like these numbers. There are very slight risks, but it's very easy to play in a smart way that avoids any potential issues. And my camera just ran out of memory before I finished up the last part, but we're very, very close. The last 3 monsters in our extra deck are Abyss Dweller, because it's stronger when you have water monsters, and it's the best way to control the graveyard in this deck, and the new number 4 Stealth Kraken, in addition to 1 copy of Stealth Kraken Spawn. So basically, this guy requires 2 level 4 water monsters. You're not summoning this guy, you just spawn him off of this when he dies, and this thing goes and turns all the monsters on the field into water, making 𝗵𝗲𝗰𝗸 plays even easier if you're able to bring this guy out first and then just continue expanding. But this thing's able to go, without targeting, destroy one of your opponent's monsters during the end phase. And that's crazy because he has an extra burn effect as a bonus, but it's a non-targeting Dryden, basically. So yeah, this card's really, really good for that. And then again, if he dies, you summon this from your extra deck and put a water monster under that. And then when he dies, you go in and summon this guy, and then you can use things like Slide Dolphin in order to put materials under these guys if you really want. So that's another situation where that could come up. But yeah, I honestly will admit I haven't looked into the Kraken deck that's going around all that much, because I've just been too busy playing this. But yeah, even without having looked at that, I definitely looked at this card and thought, yeah, there's no way I'm not playing this card in this strategy, because it's really, really quite good in this type of a rank 4 strategy. And with that, we've successfully built Water MR Xyz. Special thanks to anyone who watched the video in its entirety. It does mean a lot to me because these do take a little bit to come together and make, but yeah, definitely appreciate any support that you guys have. So let's go ahead and jump right into the alphabetical profile. So starting off, basically it's triplicates of most of the stuff. We have triple Chocolate Magician Girl, triple 𝗵𝗂𝗰𝗸𝗄, triple Nefarious Archfiend Eater of Nefariousness, triple Performage Damage Juggler, triple Performage Hat Tricker, triple Performage Trick Clown, triple Silent Angler. Then I have double Tenyi Spirit, the water guy, 𝗗𝗲𝗯. Then we have double Xyz Slide Dolphin for the monsters. For spells, and we play no traps, it's going to be 1 Called by the Grave, 1 Double or Nothing, triple Forbidden Droplet, but of course, as I mentioned, that is flexible, very flexible. 1 Instant Fusion, 1 Pot of Desires, 3 Ready Fusion, triple Tactics Talent, and double Xyz Import for a 40-card main deck. And then for our extra deck, it's almost alphabetized, but I think it'll make sense this way. We have Abyss Dweller, Bahamut Shark and the Totally Awesome that you summon off of it, Evil Swarm Exciton Knight, King of the Feral Imps, number 4 Stealth Kraken, and then the spawn that goes with that. We have number 39 Utopia Double, who goes into the regular Utopia. Then we have number 41 𝗗𝗲𝗰𝗸, the Terribly Tired Taper, 1 number F0 Utopic Future, and then the Utopic Draco Future you summon off of that. 1 Divine Arsenal AA Zeus Sky Thunder. I don't think I've ever really read that card's name out in full until now. And then we have 1 Camion Wizard and 1 Seltener Fish, or Rare Fish, for our extra deck for our ready and instant fusion plays. That's it for now, but feel free to grab one of these videos on your way out. If you really enjoyed what you saw today, remember to subscribe to JD Gaming for more Yu-Gi-Oh videos. Thanks guys, this is JD Gaming. Hope you guys enjoyed as always, and I'll see you guys next time.